So we have a new adventure on D&D Beyond, and only on D&D Beyond right now. This is an adventure that you wrote using the 2024 new core rule books, right?
So this adventure is called The Malady of Minarrh. It is a 2 to 3 session adventure for players at fifth level. To me, it's reminiscent of a lot of the older classic kind of adventures that I remember from when I was a kid. So I wanted to kind of have that same experience for people who either have never played before or never DM'd before, where they can jump into a story and it's kind of all there for them to enjoy. They get to decide how much they want to add or how much they want to, create more flavor to it. But it's also a sort of a drop-in adventure that and that was something that was very important to me, for it to be something that people could just pick up and drop into their own campaigns, so that they did, if they did have a long-term
Right.
campaign, they could pop this in. Maybe the DM didn't have any prep time to put together something for their campaign this week, and so now they can grab this and pop it in. And there are also opportunities and ways to do it as a completely standalone adventure.
Can you tell me, like, loosely what the plot is? Obviously, we don't want to ruin
Yes.
the adventure, which is like this
Yes.
is why we're dancing around things.
Yes, exactly. Also because I'm allergic to spoilers. So if I spoil something big, I will break into hives. The adventure is about a small town that is beset upon by a terrible malady that is completely mysterious. No one knows how it's happening. No one knows why it's happening. But because this particular town also happens to be, they also happens to be a theocracy, they are all very insistent upon finding their way through it through their deity in the town. So our adventurers arrive there and they learn about the malady, but then they also learn about something even more important that seems to be happening, or maybe not more important, but simultaneously seems to be happening, which is that the temple leader, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, so I'm going to say it out loud because it's like a little bit of a spoiler at the very beginning, first act of the adventure. The temple leader's daughter has been kidnapped, and she is the most powerful healer that they have. And so they haven't been able to get the malady under control, even for any of the afflicted who've come to the infirmary in the temple since she's been gone. And so the start of the adventure, there are two mysteries. One, where is the daughter who's kidnapped her? How do we get her back? And two, what's going on with this malady and how on earth do we stop it? And that takes the adventurers on a series of journeys within and slightly outside of the city of Minarrh, or the town of Minarrh. It's really not a city. And they discover more and more intrigue and mysteries and exciting things.
What level is this for?
It's for fifth level. And I
Fifth
picked
level.
fifth level because I feel like fifth level is a really fun level to jump in at. You've got some cool skills under your belt, but you don't have everything. And your adventurers can be, they can still, even though they've had experience, obviously level five, they're not level zero NPCs. So they've had experience, they've had all of that. But even if you are a brand new player, you can come in at level five and have a great time. There's not so much to keep track of that you're so buried in your character sheet and can't actually have a chance to role play.
What was it like for you to design this for the first time? To like is this the first time you've ever written an adventure?
Yes, it absolutely is. I don't know why you guys trust me with things for the first time all the time, but I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, it was daunting at first, but mostly because, again, I was trying to tell myself, okay, so I got to do it exactly right, and I got to do it by the rules, and I got to make sure that I get everything exactly right, as if it were an assignment, rather than no, 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 no. It's your world. You create the story that you want to create. So that was really fun. I had a wonderful editor, Hannah Rose, who helped me with some more of the detailed game mechanic things and working that out and making sure that we were, the game was balanced, and making sure that The story was consistent. So having a partner in crime working on that was very, very, very helpful. It was exciting. If anything, the hardest part about it was not writing more because if left to my own devices, this would have been like a 10-session adventure. I would have just ended up having more places, and there still are. There's a lot of places you can visit. You can absolutely make this a much longer adventure than 2 to 3 sessions if you choose to. But yeah, ultimately it was incredibly satisfying, and I loved choosing themes to include in the story that aren't preachy, but things that affect us in the real world, stories that are akin to things that we see in our own world. Because I think one of the most wonderful things about sci-fi and fantasy fiction is that we can learn about our own society and about the human condition, and we can, have these experiences exploring that, but they're like life adjacent. So they're just separate enough from our real lives that we might be able to dive into more difficult issues that we can't necessarily have conversations about in our day-to-day world. And so adding that and weaving it into the story in a way that the characters completely and the players completely get to decide how they feel about things. They get to decide their own morality. They get to decide their own ethics. They get to decide all of that. But being able to weave opportunities to explore that part of themselves into a story, that was really important to me. And hopefully people will see how that fits in as they are meeting different people throughout the town and outside of the town.
So you've had a year. You kind of started off the year last year by dungeon mastering for the first time. You must have a
Yeah.
unique perspective on
Yes, look at what's right behind me. Oh, look, it's our red dragon's tail.
for anyone who is just now thinking about dungeon mastering for the first time, what are your tips or your sage advice?
You're in charge of fun. That's what you're the most in charge of. You're in charge of creating fun, which means you have the power to make your players have an incredible time, regardless of what rules you know or don't know, regardless of how experienced you are. It's all about taking them on the journey and sharing a story with them. Now we have the new rule books, obviously, but this is an open book test for everybody, the players and the DM. So I think it's and everybody, if you watch even the most experienced DMs doing some of the streams that we are all accustomed to watching, they're looking things up too, and so are the players. Because there's a lot to know, and there's no way to know it all. Unless you're Chris Perkins, then maybe you do. But I that's the most important thing. Like the first tip that I would give is just remember that you are the purveyor of fun, and that takes a lot of the pressure off. Also, that there are no wrong answers because it's your world, you're creating it. So if you decide that something has happened and it's not necessarily in the adventure, okay, well, it's happened because you are the one creating this story, which gives you a lot of freedom. So I think that those two things are my main mental pieces of advice to alleviate any kind of concerns that people might have as a DM. I also, especially in this adventure, would highly encourage people to either flesh out things in the way that they want to tell the story, or if there is something in the story or about an NPC that they don't particularly think fits the world that they are imagining in their head, change it up. This
Yeah.
is this adventure is guidelines and story and really cool NPCs, if I do say so myself. But you ultimately, it's your adventure. Once you have it in your hot little hands and you are, or on your computer, and you are playing with your characters and playing with your players, it's your world. It's completely your world. I'm excited actually to see what people do with it, because every time that I have run it recently, for during playtesting, I have even found out new things that I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. What if this happens instead? It doesn't change the ultimate the long game of the story, but what if this person ends up here, or something shifts just a little bit? And it's so much fun to see how it's a completely different experience.